been walking with my face turned to. A bullet in.
This is a government's living room. How many?
Cedella planning this excursion or educational tour for us was a very good thing. I think he did, because being to Cape Coast was something I've never thought about.
Having this privilege for going to the Cape Coast Castle and the Kakum National Park, I felt so good. It wasn't in my dream that I'll be at that place one day. I was so happy when I went there.
Excursion I ko eboa ye. Ebi mu niama bi a ye nu bi ye hu niama bi da na so ye koye no. Ako hu niama bi a ye hu bi da.
Imagine yourself in the shoes of the
So each year, I get opportunity to travel with a group of teachers from the US to the Cape Coast Castle and Kakum National Park. And each time I am there, I always imagine bringing my students there, not just bringing them, but to also experience what our ancestors went through during the transatlantic slave trade. And I was very, very intentional about doing this with my students. And we did a couple of reflections so they could understand the past history of Ghana.
And I don't mind if I lose any blood on the way to salvation. And I'll fight with the strength that I got until I die. So I'm gonna stand up, take my people with me. Together we are going to a brand new home, far across the river. And you hear freedom calling me to answer. Gonna keep on keeping on.
When we entered the dungeon, I felt very emotional. I even felt like crying.
I feel bad about how the British were treating our ancestors.
When we got to the dungeons, my excitement turned to sorrow. Yeah.
The place I didn't like about the Cape Coast Castle was the cell. How small it was and how many people it could contain at that moment. This really means that our grandparents suffered.
Kakum say nipa 1,000, be 5,000, be share room back was lighting you or shame you. Empo amben from Ampum Faho.
Whenever you are home, you are in the classroom, you are roaming in the community. Remember the privileges you are having today.
The words you said, it makes me emotional. Sometimes when we're in the cell, when they close the door, and I imagine if I were to be inside this cell, which has even 3 doors, but they've locked all the doors, and I'm in the cell, they've even off the light. The cell is not even big enough for us to be in it. I was very emotional when we went.
Especially in the men's dungeon. I wasn't happy with how it was made. It looks like underground building, something like that. And look at the windows, it was not good, meaning our ancestors suffered very well. They didn't take it easy of being there.
Going to the Cape Coast Castle, learning about the history of the transatlantic slavery. Both myself and the kids learned about the resilience of our ancestors. It showed us how they fought
what they had to go through emotionally, physically, mentally, and the zeal they had to fight for our freedom today.
Would British people do this to Ghanaians since they have been coming to our country? Why would they do this? Even during the tour, we saw many of them there. But I realized that it's because they didn't know what happened. That's why they were here to know exactly what their forefathers did.
I could just imagine a lot of things, especially looking at the faces of my students also experiencing that. And I know it's kind of complex for my students to really understand the complexity of the transatlantic slave trade. But I believe strongly that as they grow in learning, they will begin to understand the whole history and the complexity of the slave trade.
Oh yes, at the Kakum National Park too. When we get there, it was so excited. Everybody was happy to be at the Kakum National Park.
We walked 360 miles to the canopy walk.
Primary forest to the secondary was a mountain that you'll be climbing, but the way it is, you will not see.
Canopy walk too. I felt very scared. Oh, I was scared how the canopies were shaking. I was scared,
When I got to the middle, I begged the tour guide that I want to return back. He said he won't allow anyone to return back, so we are all ending this.
I guess I'm confident to work on it, and I even motivate the others not to be afraid and stuff. So my energy motivates others not to be afraid, and they also follow me.
I have the boldness to walk through, yes, and I did it.